Now, Australia is said to be in the midst of a be-your-own-boss boom as we migrate from an employed workforce to a self-employed workforce. The nation has seen a six-fold increase in the annual growth of the sole trader population since the end of the mining boom.
So why do we all want to be our own boss? And is this all good news and innovation, or are there some negative consequences too? For tonight's Taking Stock, we're joined by Claire Kimball, founder of The Squiz and former media advisor to Prime Minister Tony Abbott, and Jack Delosa, founder of The Entourage and host of Entrepreneurs right here on Your Money tonight, I should say. Thank you both for being with us. The Be Your Own Boss boom. Jack, got to start with you here. This is your area. Do you recognise that this is an explosive area in the Australian economy?
Massively. I mean, entrepreneurship is a rising tide globally, and particularly this gig economy piece of people becoming a sole proprietor and doing their own thing is reflective of so many macro trends converging that this is really just a preview of what's to come. The macro trends are entrepreneurialism is becoming far more widely adopted. People are more and more disenchanted with the traditional path. You know, they watch mum and dad work really, really hard and really, really nobly for 50 or 60 years and perhaps never achieve a level of financial freedom or freedom that they desired. And so there's a bit of fatigue with the traditional education and career path. It's people wanting, you know, something that represents more freedom. You've got people like Mark Zuckerberg on the cover of magazines. You know, 30 years ago it was Bono and rock stars, and now it's Mark Zuckerberg and Richard Branson. So there's this celebrity thing around entrepreneurship. And then the entire economy is changing. And so, you know, if you fast forward sort of 5 or 10 years, what you see is less people in full-time jobs and more people with a specific skill set getting pulled into companies and pulled into roles very temporarily to complete individual projects and then moving on, similar to like a freelancer.com marketplace that you see at the moment. And so all of these macro trends converging is leading to what we're seeing here.
Claire, is it all it's cracked up to be, being your own boss?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard. I think they always say, you know, if I knew it was this hard, would I have done it?
I've just stayed a wage slave.
Yeah, never have I worked so hard for so little. But when I think about my family, my sort of immediate and distant family, those of us that aren't in jail are wage slaves, complete wage slaves. And I'm the first to have a crack at, you know, a business of any sort. So it's an interesting new type. The barrier to entry is probably the other aspect. You know, the internet means, you know, a fool like me can get a domain name and give a media business a go. It's incredibly low.
It's an interesting one too, because a lot of people say that given that Australia has had uninterrupted economic growth for 26, 27 years now, not a lot of people who are coming into the market and starting their own businesses would remember the last recession. Do you think that there is a little bit of maybe blind confidence?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is a real issue that feeds into the current political cycle when we get into an election where the government is so hopeless, yet economic growth keeps going. So I really wonder where Scott Morrison is going to go with this economic growth. You know, you need a tight, responsible set of hands on the economic wheels. That's not actually... It doesn't seem to be true. Governments, political parties have been useless for the last 12 years, and yet the economy keeps on going. So that's going to get a harder and harder pitch. But as we know, the bottom can fall out of these things pretty easily. And I think, to be honest, the other side of that is that business is so on the nose as well that people don't want to work in a lot of these big companies. They want freedom and they want other choices, and they want to take that into their own hands, which is really interesting.
But if the bottom were to fall out of everything, how hard would it be for entrepreneurs to go back to a normal job? Could you ever go back to just a normal kind of working for somebody else and
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally, and then more broadly.
I am ecstatically unemployable, so I don't know how I would go with that. But this is the.
Well, we've given you a job. Here you are tonight.
That's true. That is actually a good point.
They're paying you too.
We'll chat later.
Have that conversation.
It's not money per se.
Off the whole thing, right? Here we go.
Take him off the street.
Claire's point around low barriers to entry is a really important one, and is again a macro trend. You know, you can start a business literally with nothing these days, like a few $100s type thing. And so let's say you're a young person, you're in your 20s, you know, you invest $500, start a business, and let's say in 6-12 months, you're living at home, 6-12 months it doesn't work out, you've got this commercial real-world experience, which in my view, and in a lot of employers' view, is also far more valuable than a university degree or a TAFE qualification or whatever it might be. And so worst case scenario is I become more valuable to my next employer and play on, you know. The worst case scenario of a business failing, particularly if you're young and you don't have dependents and all that sort of stuff, is almost non-existent these days.
Yeah, so you can certainly see why the sole trader numbers are soaring as they are.
Yeah.
Elsewhere today, we saw that Facebook has extended what could be considered an olive branch to the tune of $5 million to the Australian journalism industry. Social media giant is planning to launch the Facebook Journalism Project News Accelerator.
That's catchy.
It's a catchy name.
Yeah.
Exactly. In partnership with the Walkley Foundation. Now, participants will be taught how to connect with and monetise their audiences both on and off the platform. So it's an interesting one. We spoke about this a little earlier in the program. Claire, what do you think about this as a kind of I guess, a way to maybe mend a few bridges for Facebook?
I'm super cynical at life at the best of times, let alone when it comes to these sorts of things. No, I think it's a really big pot of stakeholder management money. $5 million, as we know, doesn't go a long way in media these days. They say, I've been to plenty of these forums over the last couple of years looking at how digital news particularly works. They say the whole model was broken by the internet, not by them, and that's just not true. The internet, of course, plays a really big part of it, but the way that Google and Facebook particularly treat news as a source and feed it to people is a massive reason why mainstream media is struggling. And I think $5 million, well, I mean, it's better than nothing, but you know, is it going to fix any great big problems? No, but look, they'll have a nice time and they'll feel good about it, and good luck to them.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to sniff at $5 million, but again, it doesn't go very far in terms of employing people and for how long, and, you know, what will they be sort of tasked to do if they're employed with that money. Have you got a cynical hat on this one, or do you see it as a great act of largesse on behalf of Facebook?
I think I've got a realistic hat on this, which would be tipped into the cynical basket. This, from I view, this is just straight marketing budget for them. I don't even see it as a corporate social responsibility thing, or you know, they'll probably play on the PR thing. I agree with Claire. $5 million isn't much of an olive branch coming from Facebook, but the point with this is to get journalists, teaching them how to monetise on and off the Facebook platform. How do you monetise on Facebook platform? By putting advertising dollars into it. This is just a pure marketing play to get more journalists using Facebook as a distribution channel and putting more advertising dollars into it. It's just fueling their business model.
And I love it, Jack. You monetise it by paying Facebook.
Exactly.
Genius.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think there's a lot of...
Wrap your head around that one,
exactly.
yeah.
I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of frustration at times for digital journalists because they feel like they get the hang of Facebook and then Facebook changes itself.
Oh, completely.
And so this, perhaps, to me, sounds a little bit like, well, get to know what we're doing now because, you know, we're not going to change it. I mean, at least I hope that's what I'm reading into this.
And you're still going to be competing with all the other big news organisations because Facebook is still going to be drawing on all of their information and all of their journalism, you know, engine rooms.
Yeah, and as we know, ad revenue is getting tougher and tougher to wrangle. I think the last results, Fairfax was down 5% in their traditional newspapers, and News, I think, was up 1% in Australia. 1% is a great result, but gee, it's 1%. I mean, it's tough, and it's going to Facebook, it's going to Google, and they're killing them.
Yeah, the fact is that Facebook is the most targeted and complex, but perhaps comprehensive advertising channel the world has ever seen. So it is good at that, but make no mistake, this is just marketing for them, and it's a way to get journalists engaged to spend more advertising dollars.
So they're saying, let us pay you to pay us for your...
Exactly. We are...
The side of it is for people like me, I get to have a go. Like, again, to this barrier to entry is so low, you know, I can actually put up a news source as you know, you tick all the boxes, you get all the right verifications, and I can have a go, which is an incredibly exciting thing. But, gee, it's tough for quality, investigative, breaking journalists, which our society depends on.
That's so true, and it is worth noting as well that a lot of this investment is around investigative reporting, which is really important. Now, Moving on, US President Trump has taken the stage alongside North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and referred to him as a great leader. Now, that was at the beginning of their meetings. Now, they've since been having chats, and we're told just recently, this is breaking news, that really nothing has come of it. There's been no great deal had here. It was all a little bit of a fizzer. They're looking forward to the next meeting that they will apparently have, a third meeting. But we were really shocked there with the use of great leader coming from the President of the United States to the leader of North Korea, which, yeah, it just sort of seems like potentially that could be a damaging thing for the reputation of the United States to have said something like that. I mean, what do you make of this?
I mean, I had to double take at this because, firstly, just I think the association, while politically necessary, is kind of a good thing, but the amount of sort of I don't know, camaraderie that are obvious between the two is weird in and of itself. So for Trump to come out and make comments like this of a dictator who, with the kind of background that Kim Jong-un has, it really's got to make you wonder what Trump is thinking, if he's thinking at all.
It was staggering, wasn't it?
And therein lies the question, doesn't it?
That's right. Claire, Claire, what did you think of this story?
You've got to look at it for what it is. So there's two streams to this. You can either call him for what he is, and we stay in this cycle of nuclear threats, testing missiles, threats to bomb, you know, all sorts of targets, including Australia, which he's that nutty, you just don't know what might happen. Or you get him inside the tent. And as we know, Donald Trump calls all sorts of people great people that we know he doesn't necessarily think that is the case, or aren't great people.
But couldn't he forge the relationship and have the conversations without coming out and going as far as saying he's a great leader?
It's a pride thing. This is a face thing, as we know with these sorts of things. You know, I think, I mean, he's naturally of that proclivity anyway to go over the top with the praise and the best ever and all of that. That's part of his style. But I think the way that he's been, and, you know, there's interesting people saying that he's going to get, you know, Nobel Peace Prizes out of all of this. We'll wait and see. If he's actually able to broker something that does bring peace to one of the biggest threats in the world, it will be an incredible achievement, and even his critics will need to look at that with a fair mind, I think.
It's a fair point there. Tonight, of course, 7:30, we've got Entrepreneurs. Jack, what can we look forward to on the show?
So tonight we're talking about creative entrepreneurs. So how, you know, really creative people in creative industries have gone in and built businesses right from start-up through the growth stage and sort of shining a spotlight on their journey.
Sounds good. Looking forward to that. Okay, Thursdays.
You're a creative bunch anyway, aren't you?
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you both for being with us. Jack Delosa and Claire Kimball. Thank you very much.